our second speaker for today is Dr. H R Rao. And Dr. H R Rao was named the AT&T Distinguished Chair in Infrastructure Assurance and Security at the University of Texas at San Antonio Carlos Alvarez College of Business in January 2016. He also holds a courtesy appointment as full professor in the USTA Department of Computer Science. Prior to working at USTA, Professor Rao was the SUNY Distinguished Service Professor at the University of Buffalo. He graduated from Krano Graduate School of Management at Purdue University. Professor Rao was inducted into the USTA Academy of Distinguished Researchers in 2019. His interests are in the area of management information systems, decision support systems, e-business, emergency response management systems, information assurance, and artificial intelligence. He has chaired numerous sessions at international conferences and presented numerous papers. He has also co-edited 4 books, including Information Assurance in Financial Services. He has co-authored or authored more than 200 technical papers, of which more than 125 are published in archival journals. So it is indeed an honor and privilege to have Mr. Rao here, Dr. H R Rao, with us. And in a moment, we'll be sharing you the controls so that you can enlighten the audience as well, Dr. Rao.
So thank you for inviting me to this conclave. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, I'm suffering from heavy jet lag, so if I fall asleep in the middle, please excuse me. So I've been asked to speak about education in the changing world scenario, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about teaching the teacher, which is what the pre-service teacher concept is about, and focusing on the industries of the future. Now, the reason that I'm going into this area and not the university is that there is a great need for teaching teachers to teach. It sounds very peculiar, but to teach at the middle school and the high school level, and hence the interest in this area. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about preparation for the industries of the future, and a recent document that has been put out by the National Institute of Standards and Technologies points to 4 technologies that are going to make an impact on the future. The first 2 are artificial intelligence and 5th generation networks, which I'm going to talk about. And the other 2 are quantum computing and advanced manufacturing, which I'm not going to talk about, which is probably the topic for so what I was mentioning was that in addition, there's a third, which is cybersecurity, that has been predicted to increase in importance for national resilience as well as the industries of the future. And both AI 5G networks are expected to bring benefits of ubiquitous high-speed connectivity to many sectors of the economy and enable developments in the Internet of Things, sensors, related technology, etc. And with regard to cybersecurity, we have seen in the very recent past multiple large-scale ransomware attacks and massive data breaches, which demonstrate the critical need for cybersecurity excellence. These topics would become extremely important if we are to develop a robust workforce in these areas. And so this is an idea that a colleague and I had. We haven't implemented it, but I thought I could share it with you and get your feedback. So the point is that in order to develop a robust workforce in the industries of the future, these topics have to be infused into programs that prepare teachers for the secondary school environment. Of course, this cartoon is a bit offbeat, but the point is that AI has a part to play, whether it is at the middle school or at the high school or at the college level. So it's important to equip teacher candidates with knowledge of various technologies. And it's important to synergize efforts on developing pre-service teachers in mathematics programs. So I'll be covering some of these concepts. The goals of what I'm going to speak about is that we need to develop instructional materials, which I understand are few and far between at the school level, at the middle school and high school level. Infuse these materials into pre-service mathematics educational curriculum and assess the processes of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, content translation from subject matter experts to pre-service teachers. So in all of this, I borrow from the recommendations of the National Council of the Teachers of Mathematics in the US, which have identified technologies as principal and encourage the use of strategic technology in mathematics. So as far as research questions are concerned, these are open questions which we do not have a solution for, but we need to look into. How can university mathematics teacher educators working with STEM faculty, experts in industries of the future, translate content STEM modules into their university classrooms? And how does the translation influence classroom teaching? And what connections do pre-service teachers make between these modules and future secondary math classes? So to answer the research questions, I present some conceptual frameworks, which of course have been borrowed from the current literature. And first, let me draw on a very well-known book by Russell and Norvig on artificial intelligence, which was first published in 1995. And the fourth edition was came out last year in April 2020. And Russell and Norvig use a two-dimensional framework of human versus rational and thinking versus acting. So you have human and rational and thinking versus acting. And the current AI, which you see today, focuses primarily on this cell that you see here. But let me back up a little bit. So thinking and acting refer to the focus of intelligence. Acting refers to externally visible performance. Thinking refers to internal thought processes. And human and rational refer to performance measures. Human relates to approximating human performance. Rational relates to approximating the right outcome. So we will see that typical current AI technologies fit into this cell and use techniques like machine learning, computer vision, robotics, autonomous vehicles, and so on. And the other cell, we have acting humanly, and the approach that is typically used is the Turing test, which is a computer science test by Alan Turing, who was one of the pioneers of cryptography in the United Kingdom. Then we have thinking humanly. The humans have their own model of thinking, which is quite different from the way that computers approach problem solving. And they use a lot of, in the words of Herbert Simon, who was a Nobel laureate in economics, use the concept of satisficing versus satisfying, which of course belongs to another lecture. But the rational part of thinking follows certain laws of thought, follows laws of philosophy, and uses logic. And let me give you one example from the field of logic. I'll be using some names, and the disclaimer is that none of these names belong to any persons or person. If they do, then they are purely coincidental. So the story goes as follows. A city girl from Delhi, known as Maithili, is being led by her cousin Ashwin through the backwaters of Kabini near Mysore. And she asks, is it true that a crocodile will not attack you if you carry a flashlight? So her cousin replies, it depends on how fast you can carry the flashlight. Now, when you and I hear this story, we can easily figure out the fallacy. And again, let me repeat my disclaimer. Everything is coincidental. Of course, the names are coincidental, but if they do exist. But the point is that you and I can figure out the fallacy in this logic, in her logic, and but computers cannot. And so these three are still outside of the realm of a lot of AI, but of course there's a lot of AI going on in this particular cell. So it is important to point out that there are core learning methods like unsupervised learning and supervised learning, which are important for AI and are here today because of the proliferation of available data. 10 years ago, this would not have been possible. So that's as far as I'll talk about AI. Then we also have a conceptual framework for 5G and advanced communication networks. And what we see here are particularly valid in the realm of electronic vehicles. So we see an autonomous vehicle which has got sensors and which senses that there is a car probably too near, and then it helps to put on its brakes. And what is involved in that is a large amount of computation over 5th-generation networks. And those have to deal with both edge computing and cloud computing. And so these are topics that we see more and more in the future, whether it be for autonomous vehicles or for robotic surgery. And as far as the conceptual framework for cybersecurity is concerned, we have the CIA triad, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad, that can be used to introduce pre-service teachers to cybersecurity risks. And in the context of cybersecurity, we need to be able to understand what are the risks, how to guard against the risks, what are the vulnerabilities, and what are the attack methods of adversaries. And of course, ultimately relate this to digital certificates and technologies such as secure socket layers, which form the basis for any electronic commerce. So to conclude, I would like to focus on this slide where we are looking at learning goals that include the pedagogical, the content, and professional development sub-goals. And pedagogy focuses on interpreting results. One of the issues of AI thus far, because it is based on a lot of machine learning, is that it belongs to a black box. And the black box implies that it's very difficult to figure out the rationale for a particular decision or for a particular evaluation if you use AI. So there's more and more research in the area of explainability. And at the same time, I should also point out that there are issues in ethical use of AI, which have become more and more important in the recent past, because part of the reason is that a methodology that is used in AI uses data that exists so far, and there is inherent bias in the data. And I was listening to a talk by a Harvard professor. Her name was Latanya Sweeney, and she pointed out that one day she Googled herself, and it turned out that she was considered to be a potential criminal. And she was aghast, and later on realized that the reason that Google had considered her to be a potential criminal was that the data on which the decision was made was actually biased, because more African Americans are considered as prison inmates. So the point being that there are issues that are coming up and which need to be brought into the picture at the school level, not the college level. The school level, it's important. If students have to be thinking of or working in the workforce of the future. So let me stop with the final quote by Kofi Annan, who got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2001. Knowledge is power, information is liberating, and education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family. And special thanks to Karthik and Vinaya for the invitation for this talk. So I'll give it back to Karthik for the next presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for that insightful talk, specifically focusing more from the technological perspectives of 5G networks, cybersecurity, and especially in the field of teaching as well. Right? And I think, okay, I have one question for you, Dr. Rao. Do you think AI is going to completely eliminate human thinking in the days to come?
No. Can you hear me, Karthik?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, it's a perfect question. And let me go back to Russell and Olwig's two-dimensional framework.
Okay.
I think the AI will fit very nicely into the acting rational cell, but the human cannot be kicked out because of the other cells. You need mechanisms where the human comes into the picture, and it's extremely important. AI can replace certain tasks, but it's going to create new kinds of jobs. Of course, it's difficult to anticipate what these new jobs might be. And particularly where there is computational complexity, AI can help, but eventually, it cannot replace the human. At least that's what I feel.
I think it was a very, very sort of insightful and interesting subject matter that you presented, especially in the field of 5G communication and the field of robotic surgeries, and even in the field of cybersecurity, right? And how mathematical models, etc., need to be integrated right into the secondary school level, right? So that it provides students with a broader perspective and also facilitates, multidimensional thinking from the students.
I also have one small question, Dr. Rao. Now, in your opinion, what is the right age for children to get exposed to studying AI? How soon or how late can they understand the concept of, because the initial interaction of children will be with their parents, with the society, with the human being. And then when we get them into understanding the concept of AI, how early or how is it that they are going to understand that there exists something as AI?
So that's a very important question. Part of the answer is that they can actually start fairly early. For example, let me take an example. The example of clusters. Recognizing that there are clusters is an AI problem and has an AI solution. Now, let me explain what clusters are. So clusters could be bunches of people who shop for diapers versus, so the bunches of the people who shop for diapers would in most cases be, I would say, parents of young children. So they would be in the 25 to 35 age group, right? Mm-hmm. And what about people who shop for beer? And what is the connection between diapers and beer? Now, there's this classic marketing problem which people have solved. I'm not sure if you have heard about it. It's called the diaper and beer problem. And
very much new to us.
Sounds new to us.
Yeah, apparently, at least in the US, a lot of grocery stores, they carry diapers and beer very close to each other. So the idea is that when young fathers go to buy diapers for their children, they also pick up beer as an antidote to the smell.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
So understanding these, they're simple to conceptually understand. So it may not be necessary to go into the nitty-gritty details of the AI, but understanding the concepts would, I would say, create a pathway for people to get more involved in the technicalities as they go into higher classes, and certainly once they get into the university. So things like regression, I'm sure that most students would have, most high school students would have done regression. Understanding that is a step towards understanding AI. So there are a lot of things that can be taught at the school level, which could create pathways for people to get interested in it as they move along their careers.
Yeah,
definitely sounds interesting, right?
Yeah. And this was actually a question asked by so many of our, my students' parents. Like, in India also a lot of workshops on AI have been coming up as summer workshops. And then this is the first question which gets thrown to us. What is the right age to start them introduce them to AI? Thank you so much.
And I think the disclaimer also that you made was indeed very interesting and unintentional, of course, Dr. Rao.
Thank you.